Welcome to the demonstration and training presentation for JobMaster software. During the course of this presentation, we will be stepping through each feature of JobMaster and how to configure it and use it to meet your exact business needs. Before we begin, I would like to mention a few of the general features of JobMaster, the way that this presentation will be conducted, and some background information that may answer in advance some of the questions that normally arise in the course of a demonstration and training session. Prior to establishing Linkit Software Corporation, the principals of Linkit specialized in creating custom software applications for manufacturers and job shops. JobMaster brings together the features most requested by job shops and small to medium-sized manufacturers to run their businesses, all the way from quote through production to shipping. The philosophy of Linkit Software Corporation is to use their experience developing custom business software applications to create economical, full-featured Windows software solutions. JobMaster is network and multi-user ready out of the box. This means that for no additional charge, JobMaster can be installed on a server on your network or any computer on your network you select to act as a server. Any operator from any computer on your network can access and use JobMaster. JobMaster does not require each computer on your network to have a license to be able to access and use JobMaster. User licenses for JobMaster are concurrent user-based. What this means is that the one license that comes with JobMaster when you buy it enables one person to use JobMaster from any computer on your network. If you feel, for example, that two people might need to use JobMaster simultaneously at the same time during the course of your day-to-day business, you will need to purchase one additional license for JobMaster, which will then allow two people to use JobMaster simultaneously from any computer on your network. Additional user licenses for JobMaster are quite inexpensive, and prices can be obtained either from Linkit Software's website or from your distributor. JobMaster is a complete Windows production control and tracking software for small to medium-sized manufacturers and job shops. JobMaster has modules for quotations, sales orders, shop travelers' work orders, inventory, invoicing, purchase orders, requests for bids, and shipping. JobMaster produces parts and materials lists required for each job, packing slips, sales commission reports, certifications, inspection reports, and more. In short, JobMaster has everything required in one economical package for job shops or small to medium-sized manufacturers to take a job from the initial bid through production to shipment and invoicing. JobMaster contains 3 levels of passwords which allow management to set up passwords for users, which range from read-only to partial data entry and control to total data entry and control. All of this will be detailed a bit later in this demonstration. It is very important to note that you should back up your database on a regular basis. Instructions for backing up are included in the manual. JobMaster contains numerous reports and printouts which cover each area of the software. However, during this demonstration, many of these reports and printouts will not be shown on the screen. These reports and printouts, which include the shop traveler, sales order, quotes, and so forth, will be difficult to see and review in their entirety during this demonstration. In the support section of this CD under Documentation, you will find a button called Sample Reports. Clicking this button will open a Word document which contains many of the JobMaster core reports which you can print out or view on screen. If you have downloaded this demonstration from our website, you can download the same sample reports from our online technical support section. We recommend very strongly that you open and print this file. In addition to our demonstration and training session, these reports will give you a real feel for how JobMaster operates. During the course of this demonstration and training presentation, you will note that the cursor, as illustrated here, is surrounded by a green oval highlight. This does not appear in JobMaster itself. We have done that here to make it easier to follow the cursor movements as we conduct this demonstration. Now, let's begin. Welcome to the demonstration and training presentation for JobMaster software. Before we begin, there's a few points I'd like to address and some background information we'd like you to have on JobMaster. What you're about to see is a step-by-step presentation of the use and functionality of JobMaster software. You will note that the cursor is surrounded by a green oval. This has been done to make cursor movement more easily identifiable as we do the demonstration, but the cursor in a normal JobMaster program is not outlined in green. JobMaster contains numerous reports and printouts which cover each area of the software. However, for the purposes of this demonstration, many of these reports and printouts will not be shown on the screen. The reason for this is that these reports and printouts, such things as shop travelers, sales orders, quotes, and so forth, will be difficult to see and review in their entirety in this format. However, if you are viewing this demonstration and training session from our CD, on that CD is a report file in a Word document which contains all of the major reports and printouts of JobMaster. If you have downloaded this demonstration and training session from our website, at that same location where you downloaded this demonstration is the same report file, the Word document that contains all of the core reports of JobMaster. We recommend very strongly that you download this file or open it and print it and take a look at the reports that are contained there. In addition to our demonstration and training session, these reports will give you a real feel for how JobMaster operates. The principals of Linkit Software Corporation, creators of JobMaster, produced custom software for manufacturers and job shops for some years. JobMaster brings together the features most requested by job shops and small to medium-sized manufacturers to run their businesses, all the way from quote through production to shipping. JobMaster is network and multi-user ready out of the box. There is no extra charge for this network and multi-user capability. This means that you will immediately be able to install JobMaster on a server on your network or a computer that you select to act as the server for JobMaster. Immediately upon doing so, any and every computer on your network will be able to access JobMaster and use it. JobMaster comes with one user license, which means that one person can access JobMaster and use it from any computer on your network. If more than one person needs to use JobMaster simultaneously, in other words, at the same time as another user, you'll need to purchase one additional license for each simultaneous user. Therefore, if you have, for example, 20 computers on your network and you wish 2 people to be able to use JobMaster at the same time from any computer on your network, you'll need to purchase one additional user license, as one license does come with the software. This would give you a total of 2 licenses, which means that 2 people could use JobMaster from any 2 computers on your network at the same time, and so on. Additional user licenses are quite inexpensive. You can receive a price quote from your distributor or from Linkit Software Corporation. Again, you do not need to license each computer on your network. You only need user licenses for those people who you feel might be using JobMaster at the same time during the course of a working day. In order to begin using JobMaster software, the first step you should take is to click on the Setup button. That takes you to this screen where you can fill in your relevant company information. This is a critical first step inasmuch as this information is used by the software in invoices and other areas and will not produce invoices and other reports unless your company data has been entered. I will now click on OK and we'll move on to the next item. Password maintenance we recommend as the second step in your setup process. Clicking on Password Maintenance takes you to this screen. You'll be issued a generic password with JobMaster when you receive your program. We would recommend that your first step is to change this generic password to a password of your choosing for management. We will now click on Exit and proceed on to the actual setup of the program itself. The next step to be taken, and this is not unique to JobMaster, is to enter certain basic information that the software needs to operate. On the right-hand side of the main menu of JobMaster, under the title Lists, are a series of buttons. These buttons are used to open screens into which basic data can be entered to allow JobMaster to function, produce quotes, sales orders, shop travelers, and so forth. The first button that we will look at is Material Inventory. Clicking on the Material Inventory button brings us to this screen. And now I'd like to take just a moment to discuss the features of JobMaster's inventory control system. JobMaster's inventory control setup allows operators to check in materials, enter materials, or check materials out directly from this screen, and to adjust inventory if an actual physical inventory is taken directly from this list of materials screen. Materials can also be received against a purchase order in the purchase order area, which we will get to in just a moment. As you can see from this initial screen, which appears when you click on the Materials button, materials can be located by entering the material number or the name of the material, or simply by using the slider bar to locate a particular material item. By clicking on the material item, this lower screen shows the transactions that have taken place on that particular material. I'll click on material number 102, for example, and you'll notice that the information here has changed. Click on 103, and you'll see here that the material information has changed here to reflect what has actually happened to this material. From this area, materials can also be entered into inventory for the first time. I'll go ahead and click on material number 101, aluminum sheets, so we can take a look at how this material was originally entered into inventory. I'll click on Edit so we can see the material already entered and the data fields filled out. For most examples that I use here, I will click on the Edit button so we can look at fields that are already filled rather than starting and filling them out from scratch. As you can see, materials can be entered into inventory with a material number, the name of the material, the preferred vendor for that material, who can be selected from a drop-down list, which we'll be getting into in just a few moments, the date the material was originally entered, quantity on hand, price, unit, and so forth. These three data areas, minimum level, maximum level, and reorder quantity, give an operator and a business the means to truly control inventory levels. The operator can set the minimum level of inventory of this type to have on hand, the maximum level to have on hand, and the reorder quantity. By setting a minimum level for each material as it's entered into inventory, the operator of JobMaster can ensure that their business will not run out of a particular material during the course of production. When a work order or shop traveler is created, if the use of a particular material for that work order or shop traveler depletes inventory to at or below the minimum level for that material which has been entered here, JobMaster will immediately flag the operator and give the operator an opportunity to create a purchase order right then to order more of this particular material. The maximum level data field protects a business against having too much of a material item in inventory and thereby tying up money needlessly. A maximum level for each material item in inventory can be set, and if a purchase order is issued which includes that material and the amount ordered exceeds the maximum level the business wishes to have on hand, JobMaster will flag the operator. A business may also have an exact reorder quantity that they want ordered each time that a particular material is reordered. That reorder quantity can be set here, and JobMaster will flag the operator when a purchase order is issued. We'll now click on OK and move back to the main screen. In this materials entry area, this button, Print List of Materials, will produce with one mouse click a list of all the materials with all details which have been entered into the inventory system. Clicking on this button, Print Materials to Order, will produce a list of all materials which have fallen below the minimum reorder points as set by the operator when the materials were entered into the system. These buttons, Check In, Check Out, Return, and Delete Transaction, allow an operator with a supervisory password to check materials directly into inventory from this screen, as opposed to having to go through receiving them against a purchase order, to check out materials from this screen, to return materials that have been checked out but not used, or to delete a specific transaction. We'll click on the Check In button now to take a look at how that works. I should mention that to check in, check out, or return a particular material into inventory here, the operator simply needs to select it from the list of materials at the top of the screen. As you can see, I have highlighted material number 101 with a mouse click, and I will now click on Check In, as I mentioned, and we're brought to this screen. The basic material information of the material I've selected appears here. The transaction type check-in appears here. The quantity is simply entered by the operator here. The person's name who has signed into JobMaster using their password appears here. The transaction date is the default date of the day that the material was entered into the system here, and the expiration date is the expiration date of the material if that applies. I'll now click on OK. And as you can see, if I did not enter a material quantity, the screen demands that I do so. So rather than go ahead and enter a new quantity here, I'll just click on Cancel. Checkout works the same way. The material is selected from the list, the transaction type is checkout, the person, the checkout amount, the checkout date, and so forth. All of these transactions go into the transaction history, which appears down here, of each particular material that is checked in, checked out, or returned using this screen area. A return works the same way, only it's tagged as return. And a delete transaction button allows someone with a supervisory password to actually delete a particular check-in, check-out, or return transaction. We'll now close out of this screen and move on to the next button. The next button we will use to enter the information JobMaster needs in order to function is labor charges. Clicking on this button brings us to this area where an operator can describe the various types of labor that are used to create a company's product and to list the per hour rate for that labor. These labor charges will be used in the creation of quotes and sales orders, among other things, and can either represent the exact cost per hour that a company pays out for a particular kind of labor, or can include a markup for overhead and other factors on a per hour basis. The sales order and quote areas do contain a worksheet to develop quotes and sales orders on a line item basis and allow for markup of each labor item as well. We'll be showing you that in a few minutes. We'll go ahead and close out of here and move on to the next area. The Other Charges button brings an operator to an area that works the same as labor charges. In this area, an operator enters a description and a rate for all other types of charges that are generated in the manufacturing of their company's product. These charges and descriptions are used in the development of quotes and sales orders later on. We'll close out of here and go on to the next item. The Ship Via button allows an operator a quick and easy means to build a drop-down menu of approved shippers, which is then used by the shipping module of JobMaster. Clicking on the Ship Via button brings us to this screen where the approved shipping organizations can be entered. And these can be shipping organizations used by the manufacturer or approved shipping organizations by a customer who wants the manufacturer to use them to ship product to them at their expense. And again, the shippers entered here, along with the account number, are used by JobMaster in the shipping module when product is to be shipped to a particular customer. We'll go ahead and close out of here and move on to the Terms button. The Terms button, which we'll now click on, allows an operator to enter the various terms that their company uses when customers are billed. This is also used for vendors if vendors have specific terms. This goes into a drop-down menu which is used later on in JobMaster. I'll go ahead and close out of here and we'll move on to the next button, which is Operations. When a work order or shop traveler is created in JobMaster to handle the production of a particular product, each operation required to produce that product is listed or can be listed on the shop traveler or work order in the sequence that it has to be performed. In addition, each operation can have printed out with it a detailed description of exactly how to perform that operation. When a work order or shop traveler is created in JobMaster, the operations to perform the work described on that work order or shop traveler are selected from a drop-down menu. That drop-down menu is created from items entered here by clicking on the Operations button, which we will do now. This brings us to the screen called Operations and Inspection Codes. This is where the individual operations required to produce products are entered by the operator when setting up JobMaster and described in detail as to exactly how to perform them. These operations, as I say, are then available on a drop-down menu when an actual work order or shop traveler is created. As you can see, an operation can be entered by code number or name, if you'd care to use a name, a complete description of everything that is involved to perform this operation, and whether or not this particular operation requires an inspection before the people producing the product move on to the next step. Let's go ahead and click on Edit now, and we can look at exactly how this information is entered. Clicking on Edit takes us to this screen, which shows us how the information was entered for this operation. This operation was entered by code number, but it could have just as easily been a name, polishing or burnishing or whatever. And the description down here is only one word, but it can be very extensive. This is a very lengthy memo field. It is, in fact, an entire memo. And whatever is entered here in the description or method to perform this operation, which in this case is number 2, will print out on the work order if this operation is selected. You can see here there's a checkbox which the operator can check if this particular operation requires an inspection before the production moves to the next stage. The box can be checked or unchecked. We will now cancel out of here and move back to this screen and cancel out of here, which takes us back to the main screen and the next button, which is Preferred Status. Clicking on the Preferred Status button, which I'll do now, brings us to an area where quickly and easily the operator can build a drop-down menu which is used when vendor information is entered later to rate the vendor. In this case, as examples, we've used high, inactive, low, medium as to the preferred status of a particular vendor. In this manner, if there are multiple vendors for a particular material item for inventory, say, the vendor can be rated so that a vendor can be selected if that's one of the criteria based on the rating that shows up from the drop-down menu created here in Preferred Status. I will now close this area and we will move on to Sales Rep. By clicking on the Sales Rep button, which we'll do now, the operator is brought to an area where they can enter the information for each sales representative in the company by ID number, by name, and by the commission percentage. Now the commission percentage that's entered here becomes the default commission for each salesperson. In other words, when this salesperson enters a sales order, this is automatically the commission rate that they get. However, this commission rate can be modified by someone with a management password on each individual sales order if that management person so desires. So if the default percentage here on our example, David Stromberg, is 25%, on a particular order which David Stromberg turns in, management may want the commission, say, to only be 10%. And that can be changed on an individual order basis if management so decides. By clicking on the Edit button here, we can see that the entry of this information is very simple. The rep ID is simply entered, the rep name, and the default commission percentage. I'll now click on OK. We'll close this area, and we'll move on to the last button under the Lists area, which is the Setup area, which is Cert Statements. Many manufacturers and job shops need to produce certifications or cert statements for the various products that they produce. By clicking on the Cert Statement button, JobMaster provides a means to create those cert statements and make them available on a one-click basis when product is shipped or work orders are completed. By clicking on the Cert Statement button, which I will now do, the operator is brought to this area. As you can see, there are a variety of certificates listed here already, which we've created for example purposes. And these are available on a drop-down menu in shipping and at the completion of the work order shop traveler process. So when product is actually going to be shipped, if a certificate is required, which is noted on the shop traveler or work order, the certificate can simply be selected from a drop-down menu, printed out, and sent along with the product. This is where certificates are created for the drop-down menu and for use from the drop-down menu. The operator simply clicks on New, types in the certificate and creates it in whatever form they desire, saves it, and that certificate then becomes available, however it's named, on the drop-down menu in the shipping or shop traveler area of JobMaster. I will now close this area and close the cert area, and we will move on to the next area of JobMaster. It should be noted as we leave the lists area, material inventory, labor charges, other charges, and so on, that these items can only be entered here in the lists area. They cannot be entered at various points in JobMaster, such as in the work order shop traveler area or in the sales order area and so forth. In other words, labor charges, as an example, cannot be entered in the quote or sales order area. They must be taken from a drop-down menu. And the only way they can get into the drop-down menu is to be entered here, under the lists drop-downs. The same is true for material inventory and all the other items listed under these buttons. The reason for this is management control. By not allowing such things as materials, labor charges, terms, operations, and so forth to be entered on the fly as JobMaster is used, JobMaster ensures to management that only approved inventory, charges, operations, and so on are used, as they must be taken from drop-down menus. And the only way that those items can get into drop-down menus is for them to be entered by using the buttons under the list category that we have just examined. We will now move into the sales category of JobMaster and the customer button. By clicking on the customer button, we are brought to this screen. Here the operator can see a list of all of the customers previously entered into JobMaster. Here a new customer can be entered by clicking on the new button, or a selected customer already in the system can be edited. We have selected customer number 1. Any customer can be selected, as you can see, simply by clicking on it. But we'll highlight number 1 and click on Edit so we can look at how that customer data was entered and all of the customer data that can be entered. Before we do that, you will note that customers can be located by customer ID, simply highlighting the circle by clicking on it and entering the customer ID in this data field, or the customer name, or the customer phone number. Customers can also be found, of course, by simply using the slider bar to move up and down and finding the customers in this list. However, if you have an extensive customer base, finding the customer by ID, name, or phone number is much more convenient. So we'll now click on the Edit button for customer number 1. The reason, by the way, that I'm clicking on the Edit button here for customer number 1 as opposed to entering new customer data is that if I click on New, which I'll do here, as you can see, all the data entry screens are blank. And I'm going to click on Edit for a customer that's already filled out so we can see an example of a completed customer data entry area. So I'll now click on Edit. It's asking me to select a record, which I will do here. I'll now click on Edit, and we come to this customer screen. As you can see from this screen, customer data can be entered by customer name and customer ID number. There are 4 tabs along the top: Main, which is the main customer information, Billing and Financial, Other Contacts, and Shipping Locations. In the main screen, there are also buttons for Quote History, Order History, Printing of the customer record, Printing of a mailing label, and there are multiple data entry areas which can be customized for each customer. So specialized notes for this customer can be entered here under Main Notes. Technical notes, which will appear on the work order or shop traveler, can be entered here. And here, custom data fields can be created for any particular customer or for customers overall. So JobMaster gives operators a great deal of flexibility in entering information. Before we move to the Billing and Financial tab, where more information can be entered under a customer record, I'd like to mention in particular the Quote History button and the Order History button here on the main customer screen. An operator, a salesperson, or management, simply by clicking on the Quote History button, can generate a report of all of the quotes that have been created for this customer since they were entered in the system. In the same fashion, simply by clicking on the Order History button, a report can be generated of all the orders that this customer has actually placed. This can be a very effective and quick means to discover the value of this customer, if they actually place a lot of orders or if they continually ask for quotes and don't place many orders. For sales and for management, this can be a very powerful tool. By clicking on the Billing and Financial tab here, we can see the next data entry area for customer information. As you can see, not only do we have contact information for the people controlling the finances within that company, but the terms of this customer, their credit limit, if any, their resale number and other relevant information, and two important things here. These boxes can be checked if this customer is on hold or if they are on COD. And what happens if these boxes are checked is that when product is ready to be shipped, the shipping area of JobMaster will flag the order that it's on hold or it's on a COD basis. Also, if a sales order is placed which exceeds the credit limit for that customer, JobMaster will flag the salesperson. In this area too, as you will see throughout JobMaster, there are data areas where individualized notes and other data can be entered for this particular customer. You will also notice here that allows the person entering this customer data to put in the sales rep ID number if there's a sales rep involved for this customer and the customer orders are commissionable. We'll now click on the Other Contacts button. As you can see, JobMaster allows for the entry of multiple contacts for each individual customer. The type of contact, which can be technical, shipping, financial, or whatever, the name, title, phone, fax, email, comments. So it covers the full range of information that needs to be added for each individual contact within a customer record, and there are no limits as to the number of additional contacts that can be entered for each customer in JobMaster. We'll now click on Shipping Locations, and as you can see here, JobMaster allows for the entry of multiple shipping locations. All of the data can be entered here, the means or the shipper which is to be used, the account number of the shipper. You have multiple options for shipping, option 1, option 2, option 3. You can indicate whether this account is taxable or not taxable. And when you click on a location, a shipping location, I will click now on the machine shop, you can see the information over here changes. I'll click back on main offices. So multiple shipping locations can be entered, and when the time comes to ship, the shipping department of the company using JobMaster can simply pick the location, the customer location, to which the product is going to go. I will now click Cancel, and we will close this area and move on to the quotation area of JobMaster. Clicking on the quotation button allows an operator to prepare a detailed quote for a customer, which can be turned into a sales order with a simple mouse click. Clicking on the quotation button brings us to this screen. List of quotations. Before we go into an actual quotation, there are a number of items on this screen I'd like to address briefly. If a salesperson or operator of JobMaster or management wishes to find a particular quote, there's a variety of ways to do so. One way is to use the slider bar and simply go up and down and find the quotes that are in the system. A quote can be found by clicking in this circle and typing in the quote ID here, or clicking in this circle and typing in the customer ID here. If the list in this area is to show all quotes, this button is clicked, and this area here shows all quotes that have been produced by JobMaster. Clicking on this button shows only the open quotes that have been produced by JobMaster, which is very handy for salespeople and management because it gives a list of all the quotes that have been given out but have not been closed or turned into sales orders. And this button will print all the open quotes. Moving down to the lower screen, we see a variety of buttons at the bottom of the screen: New, Edit, Revise, Reproduce, and so on. The New button is clicked on by an operator to create a new quote for a customer. The Edit button is used to edit a selected quote. The Revise button and the Reproduce button are quite important and can save an operator or a salesperson a lot of time. First, the Revise button. There are two ways to revise a quote. One is to simply select the quote to be revised, as we have done here by selecting number 1. Click on the Edit button, edit the quote, and save it. It will then copy over the original quote. No record of the revision will be kept. However, in many cases, the operator or salesperson will want to keep the original quote and the revision. In such a case, the quote is selected and then the Revise button is clicked on. This allows the operator or salesperson to create a revision and then save it as an extension of the original quote. For example, the original quote in this case would be number 1, and the first revision would be 1-1. The second revision would be 1-2, and so on. Now, the Reproduce button. The Reproduce button can be a real time saver for a salesperson who's using JobMaster. Let's say, for example, that a customer has asked for a quote on a very involved product. And later on, another customer asked for a quote on a product which is very similar. The Reproduce button allows a salesperson to simply select the original quote, click on the Reproduce button, and produce an exact copy of the original quote, into which the new customer's name can be inserted and any modifications for that new customer can be added. This can be an enormous time saver for very involved quotes. We will now go to the Edit button. We have selected quote number 1. We'll go to the Edit button and take a look at what's involved in actually creating a quote. The reason, again, I won't go to the New button is we would have to enter all data from the get-go, whereas by selecting an existing quote and using the Edit button, we can look at data that has already been edited and created into a quote. Before we do that, however, the New button does illustrate a couple of features of JobMaster that are worth mentioning. I will click on the New button, which brings us to a data entry area for a new quote for a customer. If the customer for whom the quotation is to be developed is a brand new customer, in other words, they have not been entered into JobMaster as yet, all the operator needs to do is click on New Customer, and the operator will be taken to the customer data entry area where they can enter all the information for the new customer. If this is an existing customer, all the operator needs to do is click on this down arrow by the customer ID data area, select the customer, in this case we'll pick 112, or 1012 rather, and all the customer data that has previously been entered drops into all the proper areas here in the quotation form. And this illustrates one of JobMaster's features, which is when data is entered into JobMaster, you only have to enter it once and it becomes available throughout JobMaster in every part of JobMaster. I will now click on OK, and we'll go back to the List of Quotations area and click on the Edit button for quote number 1. Clicking on the Edit button brings us to the already entered information for quote number 1, which is the quote we selected. This screen would allow you to modify the quote that already had been created, but will allow us to look at a quote that's already been filled out so we examine how it was done and the way that JobMaster works in the quotation area. As you can see, the basic information is here at the top, customer ID, the quote number, and so forth, along with the revision number. If this was a revision, then the revision number would show up here. There's various information tabs here, customer address, rep, shipping, customer reference, and quote amount here, and we'll be going into these tabs in just a moment. The first one is the customer address area. As you can see, the customer billing information is contained here on the left-hand side of the screen, and the shipping information, where this product is to be sent to, is listed here. Down below is a listing of all the line items that are on this quote, and in a few minutes we'll look at a line item and see how the costs were developed. By clicking on the Rep, Shipping, and Customer Reference tab, we see the rep ID and the sales rep, their commission percentage, which can be changed by someone with the right management password if this percentage does not apply to this one particular job, shows the terms, any specialized quotation notes, any billing notes, any shipping notes, and if this customer had been entered as being on hold or COD, that would show up here for the salesperson's reference, and it can show up on the quote itself. Clicking on the quote dollar amount tab is a summation of the quote, the grand total of the quote, whether there's a discount which can be entered on an amount or percentage basis, whether or not there's sales tax, and so forth. So the financial and discount information is all contained on this screen. We'll go back and click on the customer address screen, which gives us again the basic customer data and shipping information. And we will now go into the actual line item information on this quote and how it was developed. As you can see, there are 3 line items here. 102, 104, and 106. 102 has had the pricing worked out. As you can see, there's a price here. So we're going to go ahead and select this line item and take a look at how the pricing was developed. I highlighted the line item, and now I'm going to click on the Cost Breakdown button. This takes us to the Detail Cost Breakdown screen, from which I can illustrate exactly how the pricing for a line item is developed on an item-by-item basis. This is the internal worksheet area, if you will, for developing a quote or a price on an individual line item on a quote. As you can see from the buttons here, this detail cost breakdown can be printed for review by salespeople or management, but of course the customer does not see this. It lists the quote number, the part number or the line item that's being quoted, and the quantity, and a box that can be checked as to whether or not this particular item is taxable. So this quote line item is being developed for part 102, which is one of the line items on the quote. And as you can see, there's an area for figuring labor, for materials, and for other costs. And as you recall from a bit earlier in this presentation, we built drop-down menus of labor costs, which you can access by simply clicking on the down arrow. Of materials, again, the down arrow lists all the materials in inventory, and other costs. So if the part 102 requires a variety of labor items to be added to it to figure the costs, you simply list those items here. To add a new labor cost, you simply click on New Labor. Opens up this data area here. You click on the down arrow, select in this case etching. There's the rate that was previously entered. Put in the number of hours required, let's say 2. And by pressing the tab, JobMaster automatically figures the total over here. The same works for materials and other costs. You can simply click on New Material, New Other, and select from the drop-down menu whatever additional items should be factored into the costs for this particular part 102 on this particular line item of the quote itself. Once the charges have been figured here for this particular line item, part number 102, each of these cost areas can be marked up by either a dollar amount, a numerical amount, or a percentage, simply by selecting the area and putting in the percentage or dollar amount of the markup. This is true for labor, materials, and costs. So this gives two ways to mark up the price of the product, by either a set dollar amount or a fixed dollar amount in each area, or by a percentage. So once all of this is completed, the operator simply clicks on OK, and the price of that particular line item here is added onto the quote itself. The three buttons here allow the operator to add a new line item and use the cost breakdown that we just examined to build the cost for it, to edit an existing line, or to delete a line item that's already been set up in the quote. To transform the quote into a sales order is literally a point-and-click procedure with this button. But before we go into that, I'd like to discuss briefly this button titled Letter. Clicking on the Letter button takes us to the JobMaster Quote Letter area. This is a unique feature of JobMaster which allows management to create canned or pre-written openings, letter openings, paragraphs on delivery, notes, closing statements, and even to add electronic signatures and save them in JobMaster's memory. When a letter needs to be created to go with a quote, then the operator of JobMaster or the salesperson can simply select the pre-created paragraphs on a point-and-click basis, and they will automatically drop into a letter addressed to the client for whom the quote is being prepared. The simple procedures to use this feature can be found in JobMaster's manual, which comes with the program, or in JobMaster's help area online at JobMaster's website. I will click on Cancel, which will take us back to the Modify Quote screen and our discussion of turning the quote into a sales order. When a quote is completed and a customer has approved part or all of it, turning a quote into a sales order is simply a matter of one click on the Sales Order button. By clicking on the Sales Order button, which I will do now, we are brought to this screen which says Quote to Sales Order. Here's the quote. It's revision 0, and here are all the line items on the quote. If the customer wishes to buy all of the line items on the quote, the operator can simply click on Select All, and all of the items, the line items listed on the quote, will drop into this box which says Items Selected for Sales Order. If the customer only wants, for example, one line item of the quote on the sales order, they only wish to purchase one of the line items, the operator can simply click on the line item of the quote the customer wishes to buy, click on Select, and that line item drops into the box Items Selected for Sales Order. The operator then can click on Create Sales Order. It says, do you want to view the sales order which has now been created? We'll say yes. And here's a note from JobMaster which gives you an idea how the flags work. It says the total order, total amount, exceeds the customer's credit limit. We had preset a credit limit for this customer, and since this order exceeds that limit, the salesperson or the operator of JobMaster has now been notified. I will click on OK to tell the program that I have seen the notice and will take whatever action is required. And we now have been taken to the sales order screen. The quote has been created into the sales order with the one line item that we selected, and it has asked us to enter the purchase order from the customer for this sales order. I will click on OK. The cursor defaults to the purchase order number, which, if I have it, I can enter. And we are ready to go. We can print the sales order for sending to the customer, or simply close out of this area of JobMaster to create the work order and shop traveler to actually produce this item. And when I click on OK, the sales order is entered into the system, and the system will know that a work order or shop traveler has to be created to now produce this item on the sales order which a customer has now approved. I will click on OK, and we will close out of the quotation area. And we are now back to the main screen where we will look at sales orders. A simple click on the sales order button takes us to this screen, which is titled List of Sales Orders. And there's a variety of features here which I'd like to discuss. This area of JobMaster illustrates again one of JobMaster's main features, which is operators are not required to perform functions in a preset manner. In short, you do not have to create a quote in order to create a sales order. If an operator so desires, or a salesperson so desires, they can go directly to a sales order without first having to create a quote. This is of real value when a customer may be reordering a product or simply sending in a PO for a product that's been created for them previously. In such a case, there's no need to create a quote, and JobMaster allows an operator to go directly to a sales order. There's a variety of other features that can be accessed from this particular location. As you can see here on the right-hand side, there are buttons: Quote List, All Revisions, Current Revisions, Print Open Orders, and Job Backlog Report. By clicking on the quote list, an operator here can move directly to a list of open quotes in case they need to create a sales order from the sales order area from a quote that's already been created. Clicking on All Revisions will show all revisions to any sales orders, because this area allows sales orders to be revised as well as edited. Clicking on this button will show just the current revisions to sales orders, not all revisions, including revisions to sales orders that have been closed. Printing open orders allows the operator here to print all the orders, sales orders, that are open and have not been closed because production on them has not been completed. The Job Backlog Report is a very important report. Simply clicking on this Job Backlog Report button will produce a report of all jobs that are in production and are not completed, or all jobs that have been completed and not totally shipped, and the value of those jobs on a job-by-job basis and in total. This is an enormously valuable management tool for being able to tell with a mouse click how much work is hung up in production and the value of that work. This area here, Projected Commission Report, is another very valuable management tool. What this allows management to do is to type in a start date and an end date and click on Projected Commission Report. And what will be produced is a report showing all commissions which will be due for the jobs that are scheduled to be completed between these two dates. And it gives management a powerful tool to see what commissions will need to be paid out if all these jobs are produced on time and in full. As you can see from the balance of the screen, many of the features that we just discussed in the quotation area are also in the sales order area. And sales orders can be located either by using the slider bar, after selecting if it's all revisions, current revisions, or open orders, and so on, or by entering in the order ID or the customer ID. Let's go ahead and select a sales order here. I'll pick number 2. And we'll click on Edit so we can take a look at how the sales order is created, and you'll find that it's created much in the same fashion as a quotation. Before we do that, however, let me click on the New button here to illustrate how a sales order can be created without first creating a quote. When we click on the New button, we're taken to the New Sales Order screen, where we can simply select the customer we're creating this new sales order for by clicking on the down arrow next to the Customer ID area, picking the customer. Their information all drops in here, and then we can create new line items on the sales order by clicking on New Line Item and developing the cost breakdown from the cost breakdown worksheet that is exactly like in the quotation area. So as you can see, a sales order can be created without having to go through the quote process. I will now click on Cancel, and we will move back to taking a look at an existing sales order and what can be done from the Edit area. Clicking on the Edit button takes us to the Modify Sales Order screen for an existing sales order. And as you can see, it looks much like the quotation screen. Customer address, terms, shipping, rep, and so forth, and the sales order amount. Below here, we can add a new line item if we want to on an existing sales order. We can edit a line item. We can delete a line item. And we can go to a cost breakdown worksheet for developing line items or modifying them that looks exactly like the one in the quotation area. You also will see that there's a View Quote button here. And by clicking on this, if this sales order was developed from a quote, using the procedure that we reviewed in the quotation area by clicking on a button, you can click here on the View Quote button and see the original quote from which the sales order was created. There's the quote, and it's highlighted. And by closing out of here, it takes us back to the sales order we're working on. So this is a very fast, easy, and convenient way to edit an existing sales order that has been created from a quote, or to create a new sales order without using a quote. I'll click on Cancel to move us out of this screen. We're now back to the main sales order screen, and I will click on Close, and we will now move to the next area of JobMaster. You have noticed, I'm sure, as we've moved through this demonstration and training presentation, that I've mentioned a variety of individual reports and such things as printouts of the sales orders and quotations and so on that I have not brought up on the screen. Again, as was mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, if you are viewing this presentation from our CD, there is a reports file on the CD in a Word document format, which we recommend very strongly that you print out and examine. In this report is a printout or printouts of all the individual main reports of JobMaster, including quotations, sales orders, shop travelers, and a variety of other reports you'll want to examine in detail. If you have downloaded this presentation from our website, there's a reports file on our website at the same location where you downloaded this demonstration, and you can download the reports file from there as well, and we would recommend very strongly that you do so. We will now examine the purchasing section of JobMaster. The first button under the purchasing section is titled Vendor. We will now click on that button, which takes us to this screen titled List of Vendors. This area allows an operator to locate a vendor by simply clicking, for example, in the Vendor ID circle, and typing the vendor ID into this data area, or clicking in the vendor name circle and typing the vendor's name into the data area. Once this is done, JobMaster will automatically locate the vendor from this vendor list. The operator can also use a scroll bar to move up and down this list to find the vendor they are seeking. The buttons at the bottom allow for the entry of a new vendor, editing the information in an existing vendor, deleting a vendor, printing a vendor list, or printing vendor labels. We'll now go ahead and look at a vendor whose information has been entered. I'll select this vendor and click on the Edit button. Clicking on the Edit button takes us to the Modify Vendor Information screen, where information already entered for a vendor can be changed. If the operator here had clicked on the New button for entering new vendor information, they would get exactly this screen, only with the data fields blank, and would have to enter in the relevant vendor information. As you can see, there's room for the address and other contact information, including email, the terms the vendor has for purchases made through them, which can range from COD to net 10 and so forth. And as you recall, these terms that show up in the drop-down menu were entered in the setup process, which we went through earlier in this demonstration. The preferred status of the vendor can be selected here from this drop-down menu. And as you can see, there is space here for multiple contact information at the vendor. So multiple contacts for each particular vendor can be entered here. There's also an area for notes that can explain peculiarities or other information unique to this particular vendor. In addition, a mailing label for this vendor can be printed right from this individual vendor's area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Cancel now, and we'll move out of this area and back to the vendor list, and we have now completed our look at the vendor. This vendor information is used for the creation of requests for bid, for purchase orders, and for ordering materials and inventory from a preferred vendor. I'll now click on Close, and we will move on to the request for bid. When a user of JobMaster wishes to submit a request for bid to a variety of vendors, the process is simple and easy. They merely need to click on the Request for Bid button, which takes the operator to this screen. As you can see, the screen is titled List of Requests for Bid. From this screen, an operator can find a previously created request for bid simply by scrolling up and down the list here, or by typing in a previously created request for bid number here, at which point JobMaster will find it and highlight it in the list as has been done here. This screen also allows an operator to create a new request for bid, to edit an old one, or to delete a request for bid. Since we don't want to take the time to create a brand new request for bid, we'll click on the Edit button and look at one that's been previously created. The information contained on the screen when we click the Edit button will be exactly the same information that would be required to be entered if we were creating a new request for bid. Clicking on the Edit button takes us to this screen where you can see the information that is required to create a request for bid. The request for bid number is automatically generated by JobMaster, as is the date the request for bid is created. Notes can be entered for consideration by the vendor which apply to this request for bid. Down below, line items can be added as required of the items that the operator wishes the vendor to bid on. In this case, there's 3 of them. A new detail or line item can be added simply by clicking on New Detail, or details can be edited by using the Edit button, or deleted by using the Delete button. In this case, as I say, there are 3 items that this request for bid asks vendors to bid on. Once this is completed, along with the material name, the quantity, and the delivery date requested, here is a really neat feature of this aspect of JobMaster. To send a request to bid to selected vendors, all that is required is to use this box here, which is a listing of all the vendors that have been previously entered into JobMaster's vendor list, which we just went through a few moments ago. As you can see, each vendor's name has a box next to it. When that box is clicked, that vendor gets this request for bid. So the operator can simply go through the list, click in the boxes next to the vendor's name to whom he wishes the RFB to be sent, Then when those boxes are all clicked, simply click on the Print RFB button and a request for bid will be printed for each vendor so indicated by clicking in the box next to their name. It is a very fast, easy, and efficient way to develop and send out a request for bid to multiple vendors. I will now click on OK, and we'll move out of the request for bid area, and we will go on to purchase order. Clicking on the purchase order button takes us to this screen, the purchase order list screen. There's a few items on the screen I'd like to address before we move on into an individual purchase order. As you can see, this is a list of all purchase orders which have been created by JobMaster. Highlighting a purchase order shows on this screen here what is on that purchase order. For example, if I highlight number 2, here are the items that are on the number 2 purchase order, and so on. This area over here allows a purchase order to be found by PO number or by vendor ID simply by typing the PO number or the vendor ID into this data field, at which point JobMaster will find the purchase order the user is seeking. This area allows an operator to simply type in a start date and an end date, for example, over the span of a week or a month, and click on Print. When that is done, a report is generated that shows all materials ordered under purchase orders which are to be delivered within the date range that the operator has typed in here. This is a very fast, easy, and convenient way to pull a report to project what materials are going to be delivered when. At the bottom of the screen are buttons for creating a new purchase order, editing an existing purchase order, or deleting a purchase order. This button labeled Report is a powerful management tool. A simple click on this button will produce a report of all open purchase orders for product which has not been delivered, the amount of the product, the value of the product, and the date when it was due. This can be extremely helpful in keeping track of scheduled shipments and overdue shipments. We'll now go into the Edit button. We've selected PO number 1. We'll go into the Edit function and take a look at this purchase order and see how a purchase order is created. Before I click on Edit, however, I should click on the New button and show you that here too, JobMaster's features are such that when creating a new purchase order to a vendor that has already been entered into the system, you simply click on the down arrow, select the vendor, and all the vendor information drops in. Again, any information entered one time into JobMaster never has to be entered again and becomes available on drop-down menus. I'll click on Cancel. We'll go back to Edit, so we can look at a thoroughly filled out purchase order that's already been created. This takes us to the Modify Purchase Order screen, but this is exactly the same screen as we just saw for a new purchase order. The only difference here is that the information has already been filled out. As you can see from this screen, the purchase order number is filled out automatically by JobMaster in sequence, and this screen also allows an operator to close a purchase order if all items have been delivered under that purchase order. That can be done here or from the receiving area, which we'll show you in just a moment. The purchase order date is the date the purchase order was created. Here's the vendor ID along with the basic vendor information. New details or line items on the purchase order can be added simply by clicking on New Detail. Details can be edited or line items can be edited the same way, or details, which are line items such as this, can be deleted simply by highlighting them and clicking on Delete Detail. There are tabs over here for contact information. In this case, there is no specific contact information. If there were, it would automatically fill out when the vendor information is entered or selected from the drop-down. And clicking on this tab shows the total of the order and any FOB information. When the purchase order is done and ready to go, a simple click on Print PO will print the purchase order, and it can be sent directly to the vendor. And again, a purchase order can be found, a purchase order printout can be found in the reports file. I'll go ahead and click on OK here, and that takes us back to the purchase order list screen, and we'll close out of here and we will go on to receiving. Before we move into receiving, however, which is receiving materials against an existing purchase order, it should be noted that when a purchase order is created, the items ordered can be marked as to whether or not the vendor needs to supply a certificate of conformance or test data for the materials being ordered. When you click on the Receiving button then, you get a list of all of the open purchase orders where materials have been ordered and have not been received, either all or in part. So let's say, for example, that we have received on our dock materials that were ordered under purchase order number 1. In such a case, these are again all the open purchase orders. We'll highlight purchase order number 1 and we'll click on Receive. Clicking on Receive for purchase order number 1 takes us to the Receive PO Materials screen. As you can see, this is for purchase order number 1. Here's the date the purchase order was entered. Here's the relevant vendor information and whether or not these materials or a particular line item requires a cert of conformance or a test data to be supplied by the vendor. If it was ordered by a particular person, that information appears here. As you can see from the line items down below, this is what was ordered under the purchase order we're now receiving materials against. And as you recall, there's two ways to receive materials, either here against a purchase order or directly into the materials inventory, which we covered previously in this demonstration. As you can see here, this line item has been totally received. Quantity ordered was 20, quantity received is 20. But this line item, all of the items have not been received. We'll go ahead then and highlight this item, click on Receive, which takes us to this receiving screen. Here's the material number, the description, the date received. We can enter the quantity received, which in this case, as an example, we'll put in 5. And we also have the opportunity here to print a barcode for this item, which can be placed on the item as it's placed into inventory, or can be tracked later by swiping its barcode. Barcoding is active in JobMaster. There's also a place for an expiration date for this material, which for some materials applies, but does not apply here. I'll go ahead and close out of here. And it says, do you want to save your entry? The answer is yes. And now you can see we received a quantity of 5 of this on today's date. This purchase order will remain open since it is not totally delivered yet. We still have 15 to go. But these 5 items have been automatically entered into inventory because we received them against this purchase order. This button down here, Backlog Variance Report, is a very important button. Clicking on it will allow an operator to produce a variance report showing what was ordered, what remains to be delivered, and what has not been delivered as yet. This report can be used for internal tracking or sent to the vendor to make sure that all items ordered are delivered properly. We will now click on OK, and we will click on Close and move out of the purchase order and receiving area. To this point, we've taken a look at setting up JobMaster with the information it needs to perform its work for you, to enter customer information, develop quotes and sales orders, and to organize purchasing, entering vendors, developing requests for bids, purchase orders, and receiving product. Now we will move to actually producing product, creating work orders and shop travelers, and shipping the product and tracking it once the work is done. First of all, we'll take a look at creating a router or a shop traveler, sometimes called a work order, which of course is the document detailing the step-by-step procedures required to produce a particular product. This can be printed out as an actual printed document to be passed from workstation to workstation on the production floor, or can be created internally in the computer with each step followed and signed off electronically. Before we do that, however, there's an important question that needs to be answered. And the question is, how does JobMaster know when a router or shop traveler needs to be created to produce a particular product? To answer that question, we need to take a final look at a sales order. I'll go ahead and open up the sales order area, and we'll select a sales order, in this case number 2, and open it up to show how the system knows that a shop traveler needs to be created for a particular sales order. There are 2 line items on this sales order, and we'll select one and take a look at it. As you can see, each line item of a sales order has a box which can be checked, which says Router Traveler. If this box is checked, When the sales order is okayed and entered into the system, this line item automatically goes to a list area of shop travelers or routers that need to be created. So that's how it works. It's all automatic, and we'll now take you to the router traveler area and show you that list area from which router travelers are created. This also prevents any line item on any approved sales order from falling through the cracks. In other words, getting into the system and not getting entered into production. I'll go ahead and cancel out of here. We'll move out of this particular sales order, close out of the sales order area, and now we'll take a look at creating a router and shop traveler. Clicking on the Router Shop Traveler button takes us to this screen, the list of routers and travelers. As I mentioned, the terms routers, shop travelers, work orders are interchangeable, so for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll use the term shop traveler or traveler just to keep it simple. As you can see, this screen contains a variety of elements. First of all, there's a listing of travelers. Here on the right are 3 buttons, and by clicking on them, an operator can see a listing of travelers in different configurations. The first button says All Routers, Travelers, All Revisions. Clicking on this button will give a listing here of all the routers and travelers and all the revisions ever issued by JobMaster. Clicking on this button will give a listing of just the open routers and travelers with all revisions. Clicking on this button, Open Routers, Travelers, Current Revisions, will give a list of just the routers and travelers that are open, in other words, not completed yet, and all the most current revisions to each of those routers and travelers. Once the appropriate listing has been selected by the operator, a particular traveler can be found simply by using the scroll bar or by clicking on the down arrow and locating a traveler by number, description, part number, or sales order number. In addition, barcoding of the travelers is active in JobMaster, which means that a traveler can be barcoded, and the barcode on the traveler can simply be swiped to open the traveler to either begin work or to move it to the next step in the production cycle. The buttons at the bottom of the screen allow the operator to create a new traveler, to edit an existing traveler, to revise a traveler, or to delete a traveler. There are 2 ways to edit a traveler. One is to select the traveler that you wish to edit from the list here, of course, and then to click on the Edit button. This brings the traveler up on the screen, and the operator can make whatever changes they desire and resave the traveler. The original traveler, in this case, disappears. If the operator wishes to save the original traveler and do a revision, then the operator selects a traveler from the list here and clicks on the Revise button. The traveler then appears on the screen as a revision. So if the original traveler was, say, traveler number 101, the revision would appear on the screen as number 101-1. And the changes can be made on the revision, and the revision will be saved and kept along with the original traveler. As many revisions to a traveler can be made as the operator wishes to make, and if the Revise button is used each time, a complete track and record is made of every revision to the traveler. To illustrate all the features of a shop traveler produced by JobMaster, we'll take a look at one that's already been filled out. However, before we do that, I'm going to click on the New button here to show you how a new shop traveler is originated and created. Clicking on the New button takes us to this screen, the list of open jobs which need a new router traveler. This screen ensures that no job from an approved sales order which has been entered into the system is going to fall through the cracks and not get into production. As you recall from our review of the sales order, each line item on a sales order which needs a shop traveler created, in other words, each line item which needs to actually be produced by the production line, can have a check mark put in a box which automatically moves that line item into this list of shop travelers which need to be created. When a shop traveler is created, when one of these items are selected and a shop traveler is created from it, the item is then removed from this list. So this list is always a listing of the jobs for which a shop traveler needs to be created but has not yet been created. As you can see, there's various categories along the top here which identify elements of this particular job. Part number, job number, description, sales order, revision to the sales order, if any. I'll use the bar here to scroll across. The customer name and the pricing. We'll scroll back here. And we will select one of these jobs. We'll go with number 105. And click on the Create Router Traveler button. Clicking on that button brings up this screen. The Router Traveler has been created and saved. Clicking on OK brings us to the Router Traveler screen. And the dialog box says, do you want to update material inventory when the Router Traveler is saved? This is asking us if when we've selected materials to produce this job, we want to update our inventory. In other words, deduct from inventory the materials that we're using to create this particular job. In this case, I'm going to answer yes, which means any materials that are used to create this traveler will be deducted from inventory. So as you can see, in terms of inventory control, it can be done right from the job master or the traveler creation area. In addition, if using materials here runs the inventory levels below the minimum levels set when the inventory was entered, the operator will have a chance to produce a purchase order if they desire right from the shop traveler area to order more inventory, or do it later at their option. I'll go ahead and click on yes here, which clears the screen and shows us a shop traveler in the process of being set up. I'll go ahead and close out of here now, and we'll go to a shop traveler that's already been created so we can review the various elements of the shop traveler itself. I'm going to click on close here, which takes us back to the list of routers and travelers which have already been created. We will select this one and we will take a look at it in terms of a completed shop traveler. As you recall from our previous discussion, that any traveler can be selected from our list of travelers here, depending upon what type of listing the operator determines, and that traveler can be brought up on the screen and reviewed by clicking on Edit, and changes can be made by using the Edit button as well. The scroll bar, of course, runs us up and down the list of travelers, and actually I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pick this traveler to edit. It has quite a few features that I'd like to show you here as a demonstration of how the traveler works. So I've now highlighted this traveler, and I will click on Edit, which brings us to this screen, which is the router traveler I have picked. The dialog box asks me if I want to update material inventory again if I make any changes here which might affect inventory. I'm going to go ahead and click on No so we can go into the traveler itself. But you can see that JobMaster tracks inventory control throughout as routers and travelers are created and edited or revised. I'll go ahead and click on No, and we'll move into the traveler itself. Clicking on No clears us into the main router traveler screen. This information here, job number, order number, part number, and so forth, automatically drops in to the traveler as it's being created from the sales order line item that has to be produced by this traveler. As you can see, there are numerous areas for customer technical notes. You can enter the PO number, and there's 4 optional fields which can be filled out with data specific to this particular production job. Here you see 4 tabs which are used in creating the traveler: Material Description, Operations, Inspections, and Graphic. Clicking on the Material Description tab brings up this screen, which is already up. It defaults up to the first tab. This is where the operator selects the various materials to be used in completing this job. And as you can see, they're available from drop-down menus. As you recall, during setup, we entered all the materials that are used in producing the various jobs. So now the operator can simply click on the drop-down arrow, select the material that is to be used for the job, put in the quantity, and they're ready to go. This can be printed out individually from this tab area to be used as a pick list for the inventory department. To enter a new material, the operator just clicks on New Material, gets a screen here with a drop-down menu, selects the material from the drop-down, and it automatically is inserted into the shop traveler. The quantity is entered here, and everything is set to go. The Operations tab is accessed by simply clicking on it here. And now here is a step-by-step list in sequence of all of the operations required to complete this particular job. To enter a new operation is very simple. The operator simply clicks on New Operation. JobMaster then inserts the next step in the sequence, number 3. The operator picks the new operation from the list of operations which was entered under Setup, as you recall from our previous discussion of the Setup area. The operation code automatically drops in here, and this can be a number or an actual verbal description, along with the memo describing in detail exactly what is required to do this operation, and that prints out on the Shop Traveler. The target date, which can be filled in here, the department that is the one to complete the work, whether or not an inspection is required, which defaults in from the write-up of the operation done under Setup, and an area to check when the inspection is completed if one is required, and the date it is completed, along with any notes that the operator or production people want to add when a particular step is completed. We'll go ahead and move the scroll bar back to the left, and we will move on now to inspection. So you can see that here under Operations, which can be printed by simply clicking on the Print button, are set up quickly and easily by an operator from the drop-down menus. A Shop Traveler can be created very quickly using this technique. We'll now move on to inspections. Clicking on the Inspection tab takes us to the area where inspections are automatically set up depending on whether or not the operation requires an inspection, and inspections can be logged as they are completed here electronically, or the inspection log itself, uncompleted, can be printed out simply by clicking on Print and follow the Shop Travelers as it moves through production to be filled out by the various inspectors who inspect each operational stage that require an inspection. By scrolling across, you can see that we have the sequence, the operation code, the description of the operation, the target date for completion, and the department if that's filled in, and whether or not the operation is accepted or rejected by the inspector, whether or not it's been completed, the date completed, and any notes. And this inspection sheet can either be filled out electronically here or printed out simply by clicking on the Print button. We will now move on to the Graphics tab. Clicking on the Graphics tab takes us to this area. JobMaster does allow for the attachment of a graphic to the Shop Traveler and will accept any graphic that has been saved in a format recognized by Windows, such as JPEG. If you have other graphic formats that you save graphics in, such as designs or CAD CAMs, you'll have to test it. But again, JobMaster will accept and attach to a Shop Traveler any graphic that is recognized by Windows as being in a Windows format. And you can see here that this area allows you to delete a graphic or to find a graphic by the path where you saved it on your hard drive. And once you've found it, you simply click on it and it attaches to the Shop Traveler. I'll go ahead and click back on the beginning of the Shop Traveler tab area and discuss a couple of other features of the Shop Traveler. You can see there are buttons over to the right-hand side of the Shop Traveler setup screen called Lot Split and Status Report. These are both very important and useful features of JobMaster. First, we'll take a look at Lot Split. Lot Split is designed to quickly, easily, and effectively allow an operator to split up a Shop Traveler into multiple Shop Travelers. Let's say, for example, that you have an order in your shop for 50 units, but the customer only wants delivery of 5 units each month for 10 months. You create a Shop Traveler for the 50 units and then click on Lot Split, which takes us to this screen, Router Traveler Lot Splitter. This screen offers the operator a fast, easy, and convenient way to split up a traveler into multiple travelers, each tied into each other sequentially. To follow this example through, our customer here has requested that their order of 50 units be split up into shipments of 5 units each over 10 months. The operator here has created a traveler for 50 units to be produced, but by simply going here after clicking on Lot Split, typing in 5, and clicking on Split It, this traveler of 50 units will be split up into 10 travelers of 5 units each, all sequentially tied into each other, which can be entered into production one after another as the product is needed to ship to the customer. This is a terrific feature both for production and management, as it means that units can be produced as needed for shipment rather than being produced all at once and sitting in inventory until they're shipped to the customer. I'll go ahead and click on Cancel here, and we'll move back to the previous screen. The status report feature is the final feature we'll need to examine here in the Shop Traveler Creation area. If a company needs to report routinely to its customers on the status of their job, that is, where they are in the production cycle, or if a company needs to review jobs internally, daily or weekly or monthly as to where they are in the production cycle, this status report feature is invaluable. Clicking on the Status Report button with a Shop Traveler for a particular job selected, as it has been here, will produce a report of exactly where that job is in the production cycle, how many production steps it has gone through, and how many steps remain to be completed. JobMaster knows where the status of a job is if the status information is entered into the system as a Shop Traveler which has been printed moves through the production floor, or if the Shop Traveler is barcoded and the barcode is swiped each time the traveler moves from production center to production center, or if the production status of a particular Shop Traveler is entered electronically into the system on a daily basis as the Shop Traveler moves through the floor. In sum, then, JobMaster can produce an up-to-the-date report on the status of any job with a simple mouse click, as long as the status of that job has been input into JobMaster, either from workstations on the production floor, or by swiping the barcode on the Shop Traveler, or by the simple expedient of simply typing in the status of a printed Shop Traveler that is moving along the production floor. That concludes our look at the Shop Traveler area of JobMaster. I will now click on OK, which moves us back to the original list of routers travelers, and I will click on Close, which takes us back to the main menu. Again, as was mentioned previously, to take a look at a great example of a completed Shop Traveler with all of its elements, just print out the reports file, which prints out in a Word document. This reports file, which contains all of the core reports of JobMaster, is located on the demonstration training CD, which you're using to view this if you're using our CD, or is at the download site where you downloaded this demonstration from our website. We recommend very strongly that you take a look at this reports file, as it illustrates very clearly the functionality of JobMaster and all of the elements and reports contained within the software. We'll now move on to the Ship, Invoice, and Cert button, which is the last element we need to review in JobMaster. So we've entered all the material and data that JobMaster needs to perform. We've developed our customers, done a quote, taken a sales order, produced a Shop Traveler, produced the product, and now we're ready to ship. So I'll click on the Ship, Invoice, Cert button, which takes us to this screen, Open Jobs for Shipping. This screen has a variety of features I'd like to address before we actually go into the shipping screen itself. As you can see on the right-hand side, you can find a job by job number. Simply typing in the job number here will locate it and highlight it over here. If the job has a barcode on it on the Shop Traveler, you can simply scan the job number, and again, JobMaster will find it over here and highlight the job. Clicking on this button will show all jobs that were completed and shipped or are waiting to be shipped, or clicking on this button will show only the jobs that are still open. In other words, jobs that are waiting to be shipped in total or in part. I'll go ahead and click on Open Jobs again. So we have a listing of jobs that are waiting to be shipped either all or in part. If we move over to this area, you can see the jobs are listed by job number, customer, description, quantity ordered, quantity shipped, and quantity due. So it's a very easy way to keep track of exactly where we are in the shipping cycle for each individual open job. Below, this shows the detail of each job. So if a job is selected, you can see down below exactly what was done on the job, the quantity shipped, and the date shipped on that job. Below in the right-hand corner are three very important management tools. Under the heading Shipping of Reports, we find a date range structure where a variety of reports can be pulled. The user, the operator here, can enter the start date for the report and the end date for the report. And by clicking on Shipping Log, can see a complete log of everything that was shipped between the start date they've entered and the end date that they have entered. Clicking on the Shipped and Invoiced button will produce a report on everything that was shipped within this date range and invoiced, which management is always very interested in. Clicking on Commission Report will show the commissions due to salespeople for what was shipped and invoiced during this date range period. Now let's look how an actual shipment is set up using JobMaster. The shipping manager simply goes to the list of open orders and selects an order to ship. In this case, we're going to pick job number 3-0-101 for customer 1114. As the shipping manager can see from looking at this, the quantity ordered was 30 and the quantity shipped to date is 15. So obviously there's some shipping left to do. We've selected this customer and now we're going to click on New, which brings us to the shipping information screen. This screen carries a variety of information by default about this particular job number. As you can see, the part number is included. The lot number and description can be added or carried over from the shop traveler if appropriate. Here's the sales order number, the revision number, the shipment number. The bill to information comes over from the sales order, and the ship to information follows over from the sales order as well, along with the salesperson information. Once we've arrived at this screen, the shipping manager simply puts in the quantity to ship. It's deducted from the quantity due. The quantity already shipped is listed here. The total order quantity is here. The shipping manager can enter the weight of the shipment that is being made, if necessary, the number of cartons and boxes, who packed it, who checked it, and whether or not this order has been shipped once it's gone. Any shipment notes can be entered here. Any customer shipping notes can be entered here. And a packing slip, an invoice, and a certificate can be generated right from this screen. Once all of the shipping information has been completed, simply clicking on the packing slip button will produce a packing slip to go with the order to the customer. The packing slip will contain all of this relevant information, including the number of items being shipped in that shipment to the customer and the number of items, if any, still due to the customer. Clicking on the Invoice button will produce an invoice for the customer, invoicing exactly what was shipped in this shipment. And again, as was discussed when we began this demonstration and training session, an export to QuickBooks is available, which will export invoice information along with purchase order and customer information directly to QuickBooks. If a cert is required to be sent with this product, simply clicking on the certificate button will produce the list of previously created certs. The proper certificate can be selected, printed, and included with the shipment itself. So as you can see, this shipping information screen gives the operator a fast, easy, and convenient way to set up all shipping and also to track all shipping that was done and all activity in shipping that's taken place on this customer's account and on this particular order. There is nothing the operator needs to do to move all of this completed activity into the customer history except click on OK when they're totally done, which I will do now, which takes us back to the main Open Jobs for Shipping screen, which we will now close, which takes us back to the main menu for JobMaster.